593 before Christ, a man stands at the edge of a Babylonian irrigation canal, exiled far from everything he had ever known, when suddenly the ground disappears beneath his feet. Not literally, but what he sees next will change the history of the world forever. God transports him in the spirit and sets him down in the middle of a valley, and this valley is covered in bones, human bones, dry, very dry, scattered as far as the eye can see. And then God asks a question that echoes across 2,600 years. Son of man, can these bones live? This question was asked in 593 before Christ. And on May 14th, 1948, the entire world saw the answer. But between the question and the answer, there is a sequence in the biblical text that no theological school teaches completely. A sequence that history verified point by point. And that is what we are going to talk about right now. The vision is in chapter 37 of the book of Ezekiel, verses 1 through 14. And it begins with a Hebrew word that transforms everything once you understand its true weight. The word is etzem. In English, we simply translate it as bone, but etzem in biblical Hebrew means far more than biological structure. Etzem means essence, own substance, being in itself. When Adam sees Eve for the first time and says, "Bone of my bones," he is not talking about biology. He is saying, she is of my own essence, of my own substance. She is myself in another form. So when Ezekiel sees a valley full of etzemot, the original Hebrew reader is not hearing a pile of bones scattered on the ground. He is hearing a valley full of essences stripped of life, identities without a future, stories without breath, beings who were once real, who once had a name, a family, a memory, a purpose, and who are now dust with no sign that life was ever there. And the text goes further. It specifies, Yeveshim miod, very dry, extremely dry. The Hebrew root yavesh describes total withering, the dryness without return, and the miod at the end is the maximum superlative in Hebrew. They are not merely dry, they have been dry for so long that the very memory of their life seems to have evaporated along with the flesh. The rabbinic commentator Rashi, writing in the 11th century, observed that this specification serves to eliminate any doubt. These are not recently dead. These are dead so long ago that no sign of resurrection seems possible. God looks at all of this and asks the prophet, can they live? And Ezekiel, with an honesty that few theologians would have the courage to imitate, answers, Lord God, you know, he did not pretend to a faith he did not have. He did not give the answer the religious person expected. He looked at the impossible and handed the question back to the one who could answer it. And then the process begins. And here is the detail that will change everything for you. In verse 7, the bones draw near, each bone to its bone. The skeleton reorganizes first, bone structure before anything else. In verse 8, the text continues in precise anatomical sequence. And sinews came upon them, and flesh grew, and skin covered them above. Sinew first, then flesh, then skin, not random, not all at once. In order, in verifiable stages. And then at the end of verse 8, a clause that stops everything, but there was no breath in them. In Hebrew, veruach ein bahem. The bodies are anatomically complete, biologically intact, but empty of what matters, standing or lying with every structure in place, without the breath that makes them alive. Only in verse 10, after Ezekiel prophesies to the ruach, to the spirit wind, to the breath that is the same word from Genesis when God breathed life into the first man, only then do the bodies rise up and stand on their feet. A very great army. In Hebrew, Kayil Gadol Meod Meod. The narrator doubles the intensifier because what he saw does not fit within the normal scale of words. And then God explains in verse 11, leaving no room for interpretation, these bones are the whole house of Israel, not one tribe, not one specific group. the whole house of Israel, and they say that hope is lost, that they have been cut off, that there is no way back. The promise of God in verse 12 is a specific geographic address. And I will bring you into the land of Israel, not just any land, the land of Israel, with a name, with a location, with borders the original listener knew by heart. And verse 14 closes with one of the most absolute statements in all of the Old Testament. And you shall know that I, the Lord, have spoken and performed it. In Hebrew, dibarti ve'asiti. I spoke and I did, in the past tense, as if the fulfillment were as certain as something that has already happened. Now engrave this sequence in your memory. Sinew, flesh, skin, breath, stages in order, complete body before the breath. Because you are about to recognize this sequence in the documented history of the 20th century. Fact 1. In 1882, the first Jewish immigrants arrive in Palestine in organized waves, fleeing pogroms in Russia and Romania. They find a land that the American writer Mark Twain had visited only 15 years earlier and described in his book, The Innocents Abroad, as desolate and mournful, without a single tree or shrub across its entire extent, inhabited by very few people scattered across a land that seemed to have been forgotten by time. In 1800, the Jewish population in Palestine was approximately 10,000 people. In demographic, historical, and cultural terms, the people of Israel had been scattered across the world for 18 centuries, without territory, without government, without sovereign armed force. The bones were on the ground, very dry. Fact 2. Between 1882 and 1948, successive waves of Jewish immigration arrive, called in Hebrew aliyot, meaning ascents, each wave with distinct characteristics coming from distinct countries for distinct reasons. The immigrants drain swamps, plant forests, found cities, build universities, establish hospitals, create newspapers, develop agriculture in land that seemed dead. And they do something that no people in history had ever done before. They resurrect a dead language as a living tongue. Hebrew had ceased to be a spoken daily language around the 2nd century of the Common Era. It was the language of prayer and study, not of market and conversation. Eliezer ben Yehuda, a Russian immigrant who arrived in Palestine in 1881, became the architect of its resurrection. He created new vocabulary for modern realities, taught his children to speak only in Hebrew, and planted a language that today is spoken by millions of people as a first language. Sinew and flesh, structure before state, the body being built before the breath arrives. Fact 3. Between 1920 and 1948, Palestine is administered by the United Kingdom under a League of Nations mandate. During this period, there exists an organized Jewish community called the Yishuv, with its own institutions, Hebrew language press, informal defense force, complete educational system, vibrant cultural and intellectual life. There was everything except sovereignty. There was body without the breath of statehood. Verse 8 in practice, anatomically complete, but veroach ein bahem, without spirit yet. Fact 4. On November 29, 1947, the United Nations General Assembly approves the partition plan for Palestine by 33 votes to 13, with 10 abstentions. The path is open, the breath is missing. Fact 5. On May 14, 1948, at 4 in the afternoon, in a museum in Tel Aviv, David Ben-Gurion stands before 350 people and reads aloud the Declaration of Independence of the State of Israel. 11 minutes later, the United States recognizes the new state. 3 days later, the Soviet Union. The Ruach entered, the bodies rose, sinew, flesh, skin, breath, in the same sequence, in the same order, that the text of Ezekiel described 2,600 years before. No other people in human history did what the Jewish people did. The Sumerians disappeared, the Hittites disappeared, the Phoenicians disappeared, the Akkadians disappeared. No people that the Roman Empire dispersed returned as a nation to the same specific territory, with the same resurrected language. with the same collective identity intact after 18 centuries without land and without government. The British historian Paul Johnson, in his monumental History of the Jews, published in 1987, wrote that the survival of the Jewish people through 18 centuries of dispersion, persecution, and systematic attempts at extermination is the most extraordinary phenomenon in human history, and that no purely sociological or political explanation can fully account for it. When Ben-Gurion finished reading the declaration in that museum in Tel Aviv, the room began to sing the Hatikvah. Hatikvah means in Hebrew, the hope. The lyrics were written in 1878 by a Jewish poet born in Galicia and say, "While in the heart within, a Jewish soul still yearns, our hope is not yet lost, the hope of 2,000 years to be a free people in our land, the land of Zion and Jerusalem, 2,000 years." That was not lyrical exaggeration, it was historical precision. And Theodor Herzl, the founder of political Zionism, had written in his diary in 1897, after the first Zionist Congress in Basel, "In Basel, I founded the Jewish state." If I said this aloud today, it would be greeted with universal laughter. In 50 years, everyone will know. 51 years later, on May 14th, 1948, Ben-Gurion read the declaration. The question is not whether this is an impressive coincidence. The deeper and simpler question that remains is, what kind of book knew this? The question that God asked Ezekiel in that valley was not only about Israel, it was a question about what seems impossible to restore. It was a question about what is too dry, too dead for too long, for anyone to believe it can still live. And the answer Ezekiel gave is the most courageous and most honest answer a human being can give in the face of the impossible. Lord God, you know. He did not fake certainty. He did not perform faith. He handed the question to the one who could answer it. And God did not wait for perfect faith before acting. He asked for only one thing: prophesy. Speak over the bones. Speak over the sinew. Speak over the flesh. Speak over the skin. Speak over the breath. Speak the entire sequence out loud over something that seems impossible. And then wait. For 2,600 years, the people represented by the dry bones waited. They read the text. They reread the text. They taught the text to their children, and the children taught it to their grandchildren. They survived the Spain of 1492. They survived the pogroms of Russia. They survived the Europe that tried with industrial methodology to finish the bones once and for all. And in May of 1948, those who survived and the children of those who survived stood up in a room in Tel Aviv and sang about the hope that was not lost. The same God who asked, "Can these bones live?" and then answered his own question before the entire world in 1948 is asking you the same question right now. The answer does not depend on the condition of the bones. It depends on who is breathing. This is Ezekiel 37. This is the prophecy of 1948, and the valley is still full of possibility.